He'll be part of the.
Welcome to Innovative Strategies with Bill Hasse. Innovative Strategy is a show designed to help people with their business and personal financial literacy, but not in the way that you have known. This is not your grandpa's financial literacy, as Bill uses his 30-plus years in the financial industry to stretch your financial box from, let's say about a 30,000-foot view of things. Bill and his guests have helped hundreds of clients achieve and surpass their financial goals. If you have any questions, please email Bill at bill@billhasse, that's bill@billhasse.com, or reach out to him right here at 216thenet@gmail.com. And today, define your success, because we've probably been living under somebody else's definition for a long time. Bill, how are you?
Good morning, Ken. How you doing?
I'm happy, healthy, and terrific. Thank you.
That's awesome. You ready for the change in weather and the change in seasons?
No. I rode in on the motorcycle today, a little chilly.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
But this afternoon is gonna be great.
Squirrels are working hard in my yard, so I don't think things are looking too good for us this year. But we'll see what happens. And our cubbies are kind of falling apart. So
Cubs, Bears, whatever.
Yeah.
You had a good getaway with the family, yeah?
I did.
Some R&R.
I did. I got to get some R&R, first trip in about 8 years for vacation. So we had a nice time getting away and spending some time together in a different place. Which was nice, because all our vacations are always going to visit our kids where they live or they come home.
Yeah.
And that gets old and boring.
And R&R is not a rest and relaxation. It's recklessly spending. And
I did say that. I turned to my kids and I'm like, all right, we got to slow the roll here, because we spent like $1,000 in the first 24 hours just on food and going out and grocery and all that stuff. I'm like, all right, we got to slow the roll here.
Yeah.
But nice time, a little time on the beach, and never hurts.
That's it.
But yeah. Thanks for asking. Today, we want to bring on our special guest and friend out in New York, Tony Carnesi. I'm going to read this introduction because I can't memorize these things anymore because I'm old. And
Sometimes
I got to go take my Alzheimer's test or something. But Tony, early in his career, he was a CPA. Upon returning from a client, he asked the audit partner if he could help a client reverse his 3-year trend of falling profit margins. The CPA wants to help out a business owner. Interesting. He replied, Tony, that's not what we do. Bingo. And that was Tony's inspiration as a recovering CPA. His goal was to help leaders of organizations fulfill their dreams and visions. As a C-suite CFO, with accurate numbers that tell the story, he will help you put the plan together and implement it. He has served international clients to regional New York businesses, and Tony has appeared on Fox Business News, Good Day New York, and he's been featured in the New York Times and Crain's New York. So welcome to Chicago, Tony.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Kent. Glad to be here virtually.
Yeah, super happy to have you here, because I think this is another wonderful conversation that we want to talk about, and with defining your success and defining your success in our little chat before the show here starts at the top, right?
Yes, it does. Absolutely. It starts at the top and looking in the mirror.
Yeah, because it flows downward, right? Everything flows down.
That's right. What you expect from yourself, you can't. If you don't expect it from yourself, you can't expect it from your people.
Whoa. Man, that makes a business leader.
That's all we have to say. Great show. It's
we just lost half our audience with business leaders going, oh crap.
Right.
But you're right. You're right, and it's part of being a leader. And leadership skills, we know, are hard to find out there in a lot of places, a lot of venues. So what do you bring what do you help with these leaders? Or you go in and help, I know you do it with numbers too, being a CPA. That kind of helps put things in perspective, right?
Well, Bill, I like to tell people I'm a recovering CPA, a certified public accountant, but I remain a CPA. I am a certified pain in the ass. You want good numbers? I'm going to bring you good numbers. But in addition to that, are you going to use your numbers to guide your business and make decisions? A lot of times people will have numbers and they won't look at them. They won't use them. And it's important to share those numbers with the rest of your team. Okay, I was just on the phone with a prospective client we were talking about. He says, how can you help us with HR? And I said, well, from a CFO perspective, your numbers are important for strategy and what direction you want to take your company. But as you look at them, the number is also a reflection of the performance of your people and how they're doing. Yeah. And that implementation, that strategy is all great. But if your people haven't bought into the process and doing what you need them to do, well, then that's where the numbers really come in handy and say, well, it's time to talk to our people about how they're performing and what they're doing. And that's a two-way street.
It is. I've experienced that, when you, and I like how you say that your clients or your employees need to buy into. That's very, very important. I agree. I mean, if I spent part of this life as a underwriter and processor of loans at a bank, and about every 3 months they would say, okay, we're going to change everything and we're going to start doing it this way, and be like, okay, but we just got kind of rolling on the last change we did, and now you're switching it up again. It's hard as an employee to buy into what the company's trying to do if you just keep changing, right? I mean, that's one problem. The other problem is business. You're right. Business owners don't look at their financials, especially small business owners. They look at the one sheet that says, here's where I started, here's what I brought in, here's what I spent, here's what's left over. Mm-hmm. That's about it. I see a lot of that.
Back to your point, one of the questions I would encourage the people to ask is, why didn't you ask us before you made this change?
Yeah.
Okay. Why didn't you ask us? And that brings up, a whole lot of different points. But the thing is, if you want your people to perform and help your numbers get better, well, what is their skin in the game on this? And I'm just going to go to football for the football fans out there. Aaron Rodgers was ready to quit the Green Bay Packers. Why? Then he goes to the New York Jets, and all of a sudden he has a voice. He gets to share what he thinks should be done. Here's a valuable employee who's got 20 years experience. He had issues with the Packers general manager. Sorry to go into sports, but I love sports. No, I know you guys are in Chicago. We're talking Green Bay.
Yeah, kind of football right now isn't our favorite conversation in Chicago.
We're going to have to deal with this just for a minute, because the Green Bay Packers sort of said, Aaron, we're drafting this quarterback. We're bringing in young receivers. We don't care what you have to say. The Jets go over and they woo him. He goes over here, and I know he hurt himself, and that's a whole nother story with the New York Jets right now. But he had a voice. Aaron had a voice, and he is happier than he's been in a very long time, working for a company, playing for a team, because they allowed him a voice. If you want your people to buy in your situation, why didn't they ask you guys for best practices on how to do all that stuff? Somebody went out in the C-suite and said, hey, we got this new IT guy. You know what we're going to do? Or lady, pardon me. We're going to do a new system because they said this is going to work.
Yeah.
Didn't ask you. Didn't ask you.
That's pretty common, though.
Yes.
I would think that in fact, I would think it's rare for leadership to ask those beneath them what they think about this new idea or this new thought. Just because you can open up a big can of worms doing that, right? because you're gonna have employees that are gonna be all over the boards. Some are gonna love it.
That's
You
right.
always have the ones that say, "Oh, whatever you think, I love it." And then you have the other folks that say, "Whatever you think, it's wrong."
Mm-hmm.
But that's where you got to. I agree with you. You got to get the people to buy into this.
Okay.
And in order to do that, they got to participate.
Yep. And it's important to you just mentioned two different types of employees. One, what I like to call a terrorist. They've got a bad attitude. Everything is bad.
Yeah.
Then you've got your good employees. And the key to get your good employees to give you good feedback is to take away that fear of speaking up. So that's a whole nother story that you can go into. But
oh yeah,
and again, what is the environment you're creating for your people so they respond and help you grow your business? And not just tell you what you want to hear. How do you do that? It's not easy. It's not one of my guests on my podcast a few months ago, and he built a really nice business, over 50 employees, a number of outside consultants, well over 100 people working with him. And he said, Tony, I thought I shouldn't share how I did this. But then I realized I can, because nobody's going to do it anyway. It takes a commitment. Give me 1 second. Okay.
that's interesting.
So, that's the key to creating a workplace where your people want to help you. It takes commitment.
To me, that starts in the hiring process too. Hiring the right people. We have a tendency to what I've seen out there recently is companies are trying too hard to hire the exact fit. And with the experience, the knowledge, the background, education and all that stuff. And again, that's another whole subject we can go off on. Because I loved when I was at a certain bank underwriting, I was told, well, you're never going to be able to rise too far because you don't have a college degree. And I said, as opposed to Joe, who does 1/10 of the work I do in production and has a degree in English literature. Really? But that's how that works out there. But hiring the right people from the get-go is hiring character, right? And hiring people that you want to talk to them and say, this is what we're trying to do here. Do you believe in that? Can you buy into that? I think if you start them off right away, but you still have to have the culture within. Once they come inside, you can't do the bait and switch on them.
That's right. And you bring up a good point. I once watched a consultant, and he drew the x-axis and the y-axis. Attitude, aptitude, 4 quadrants. Great aptitude. Okay, so low aptitude, low attitude. Why are they here? Why are they here? Great aptitude, but low attitude. Good attitude, but low aptitude. Good attitude, low aptitude. That's a puppy. That's a puppy that you can train.
Yeah.
Because the attitude is they're happy. Yeah. What can I do? What more? I can do more. High aptitude, low attitude. The person you just mentioned would have said, oh, that's a bad idea.
Yep.
This gentleman called them a terrorist in your organization because they know a lot, but then they plant bad seeds. Then, of course, you have your superstars who are high in attitude and high in aptitude. Those are the people you want to hear from. Those are the people you want to say, hey, I need to hear from you. And the culture can be built starting with those folks and opening the door, having an open door. You mentioned earlier, and tell me when you want me to shut up, okay? But one of my first consulting clients, I asked him, because he said, his profit margins were not good. They weren't up to industry standards. I said, have you asked your people? Why would I do that? 2 months later, he came back from the holidays. He says, at my Christmas party, I had the employees over. I started asking them questions. You wouldn't believe what they started to tell me. Some really good stuff.
Okay. But it's, again, this is not common. Right?
But now let's talk about the current environment, the millennials, okay, quiet quitting, the great resignation, okay?
I'm just not going to show up.
Okay. So much has come out, especially during the pandemic, about what people want, okay, and what their needs are. And I think management has started to change because of that. But now I get into this, so stop me when I go too far, all right? But like I was talking with a team the other day, and one of the managers said, I am sick and tired of hearing this stuff that I have got to ask them about their dreams, their visions, and bring them into alignment with what they want. I said, that's because you've hired the wrong people. Your team sucks.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Because you want to bring in the right people first, see that they can do the job, and then you start talking about long term and, hey, let's put together a career plan for you. Okay. Yeah. That's what the current environment has brought to the table with younger, the millennials and now the Gen Zers, what they want versus what us boomers and Gen Xers, how we were brought up in the workforce. It's different. Now, Bill, can I just go into a little bit management theory with you for a minute?
Okay. Please do.
In the 1950s, there was an academic called McGregor, and he called managers X managers and Y managers. X managers are the ones who micromanage you, and they feel that the only incentive for an employee is money, and they're not there for any other reason. And they feel that I have to watch over you very carefully, make sure you do your job right. A Y manager says, you know what? I believe that you want to be here and do a good job. I'm not going to micromanage you. So we have, and let's face it, you said it's rare, but that's because, most of the leadership workforce is still of that older mindset.
Yeah, right. Okay?
Younger leaders are being brought up now. You got to listen to your people. You've got to do it. And I call it self-management. You need to teach your people to self-manage themselves. You can be a great taskmaster. I was working with a team a year and a half ago, and I met with the managers. Oh, you guys are all great at telling people what to do. Wow, big deal. But now the boss keeps asking you to do more. This boss was funny. He had an acronym called RFN, right effing now. Okay. And I asked the management team, how often do you say yes to RFN? We do. And what does that do to you? It pressures the crap out of us.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what if you stopped being a taskmaster, taught your people to self-manage themselves and be better at being accountable to themselves and sticking to deadlines and not having to wait for you to come to them? Would you be able to say yes to RFN just a little bit more?
Well, let me ask you this then, because we talked about this a little bit before the show when I was bringing up people need to learn to be self-responsible, for their actions, their words, and to go out and learn. Don't just take verbatim what you read or hear from someone or something else. Do your research. But we have two kinds of employees that, if you want to break out just two categories, there's the one that does want to advance, that does want to move up, that does want to contribute more. And then there's the one that just says, I'm happy just being told what to do, so I know what my job is, so I can do that and do it well and just leave me alone. I mean, the worker bee. And there's nothing wrong with being in either one of those categories. And I don't want to make either one derogatory, but there are those two kinds of people. So we go back to interviews. One of the main questions in an interview, where do you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years? And it's like, who the hell knows?
I had an interview years ago where this young guy said that to me. He's like, "Hey, where do you see yourself in 5 years?" And I started to laugh, and he goes, "Well, what's so funny about that question?" I go, "Well, if you had asked me 5 years ago, it wasn't sitting in front of you trying to get this job."
Right. But in 5 years, I'll be your boss.
Yeah.
There's another great answer. So, so we're looking at different types of employees, being self-responsible, being self-driven. Those aren't easy people to find.
No, they're not. And go ahead.
They come with baggage.
Yes, they do. And that's why it's important when you are interviewing people to be very clear on what you expect from them. I'm going to do another sports analogy because I love doing sports analogies. Okay?
Let's do it.
Phil Jackson, how many championships did he win as a coach?
A lot.
11. Okay. Somebody asked Derek, I think it's 11.
Yeah.
Somebody asked Derek Fisher, who played for him, what made Phil so special? He says, you know what? Nobody was more intentional and specific about what our jobs were once we got on the court. Okay. And it's in the specifics. So in other words, when you're interviewing somebody, you have to be very specific of what you want and what you expect them to do. And now when you bring them on board, you have to make sure you've set them up to succeed. And that's a whole nother discussion. But now it's like, don't give them such a long rope. I mean, I can't tell you how many startup businesses I work with. And these folks go, oh, this person's been here for 2 years. I really have to micromanage them. Why are they here? Okay.
Right.
You need to keep that noose, the rope on that noose, very short and say, this is what I expect from you. If I don't see it in 90 days, you're out of here. Okay. Period. But the hiring is the only part of the first part of the process. Hiring continues because they're not full-time employees yet. I don't care. They've got to prove themselves to you. And you have to prove yourself to them and set them up, give them the tools. But now it's like, if you don't have it, you're out of here. And that's why hiring, people think it stops after they signed on the dotted line. They brought them into the office.
Well, I'll play devil's advocate. I want to play a little devil's advocate here.
Good.
Because
Let's do it.
This is a pet peeve of mine in the sales world. A lot of times you're brought on as a salesperson and it's like, all right, you have to meet your quota in 30, 60, 90 days. You're out of here. On the flip side of that, if you do 1.5 or 2 times your quota, they're like, oh, well, we got to rearrange everything. We're going to up your quota and we're going to drop your commissions. A really good incentive kind of work there. But so that's a pet peeve of mine when you're saying, okay, you got X amount of time to get your stuff together and figure this out, because people learn at different paces, right?
Yes, they do.
And they can grow at different paces, and then some are faster, some are more experienced, some are less, and as you know, but so when you say 30, 60, 90 days, that sets an alarm off in my head.
Okay, let me see if I can turn that alarm off for you. Well, new hire, I expect you to accomplish this in 90 days. Over the next 20 days, I want you to start here. Then let's sit and talk. And let's have a conversation and let's go over what you've done and what you've learned. Okay. Because if you give somebody a 90-day goal, don't wait till the 88th day to check and see if they're doing okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Now it's and this is where it comes under that definition of setting up to succeed. Now, this is what we want you to do, but let's make sure you're on the way to doing it. And now if something comes up, well, then you've got to be flexible, because some people do take longer, but you've got to start somewhere with a deadline. But then now that deadline is not set in stone depending on circumstances, who you're working with. If you want me to go back into sports again, okay, and I'm a Jets fan. I hate Bill Belichick, but I watched a video of Bill Belichick one day, and boy, he just knew how to walk around practice and tweak each player differently. He knew how to get on, okay, and you got to know your people. That's knowing your people.
So that's good management. Okay, that's being a good manager, and I like what you're saying, because if I'm going to give you this 90-day rule or window, let's say, you have to support that person. You can't, like you said, you can't just walk away and show up on the 88th day and say, okay, apparently it's not working. and when you've never once gone to the person to say, hey, like at your 20-day interval, let's say, how's it going? What kind of help do you need? What can I do to help you get further along and further ahead in the next 20 days? But you don't see that much in management anymore. Management do this, walks away, expects it to get done. What is it?
RFN.
RFN. Because in my world, in the trading world, we used to call it GID, get it done.
Okay.
Yeah, but the reason for that was because if you didn't get it done, it was going to come back to bite you, and it hurts. But RFN is a little bit different. That's just a boss being a boss.
Okay.
And saying, get it done.
One of the reasons that contributes to what you just said about managers not being able to manage is, I remember talking to a salesperson who was promoted to manager. Okay. And you could see he was uncomfortable. It was during a networking event. We were doing a mastermind with him to talk about it. And I asked him, I said, which would you rather be doing, selling or managing? He said, I'd rather be selling. I don't want to manage people. Yeah. So often, and I grew up in CPA firm, okay? Who became a manager if you can get the work done fast? Okay?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. Was I taught how to be a manager when I had people working for me? No. But when you go to a large organization, we've got, you go to a Citibank, Citicorp, there's management training in bigger organizations. But when you get to the small, medium-sized businesses,
yeah,
there's no management training. And that's where is the management training good is another question. Okay.
That's going to bring that up.
Story.
Yeah.
But so often we take people who are good at their jobs, good technicians, good salespeople. Oh, you're doing great. Could you run the team? And now you've got that fear or that culture of, I've got to do it because they told me I'm going to do it, versus being able to say, I really love selling. I really don't want that. So that goes right back to the beginning of our conversation of somebody not being fearful of saying what needs to be said.
Well, historically, you couldn't turn down an opportunity at a promotion, especially in the big corporate world, because that is frowned upon big time. That means you're done. They're never going to come back to you again and ask you again to partake in a leadership role. And I think there are a lot of people. My experience was that people around me that got promoted, I'm like, I said, I don't get it. I'm top 5% producer in the country for this bank. And other people around me who were not doing near the amount of work I was doing or the level I was doing were getting promoted. And I'm like, well, if this is how it goes, it's the higher up you go, is the dumber the people are. And I said, I can't. I after 4 years, I said, I can't do stupid anymore. And I walked out of the corporate world and said, I'm done. I just can't do that.
Well, I'm going to challenge you there, Bill. You didn't play the game, did you? You got to know somebody. You got to know somebody.
Well, the funny part is my sister's actually married to the cousin of the person who was the chairman president of the bank.
Okay.
A very Fortune 50 bank. So, but I did not wish to play that card. That would have been a bullseye on my back, I felt.
Oh, okay.
I didn't want people to think that I was getting promoted because of that connection as much as if I were to get promoted, it would be based on my work.
Okay. And maybe he felt
that might be old school thinking.
And maybe felt the same. And maybe cousins, they felt the same way too. Oh, I can't promote my nephew or whatever the relationship was. I lost track. Sorry. I don't know. But, typically in a large organization, it's not just your technical proficiency. It's also being bureaucratically in the right place with the right people. And you're showing the right people and you have the right voice behind you. You have that right advocate behind you. And that's part of that big corporate game that, when we're talking to small, medium-sized businesses, they didn't want to play that game or else they wouldn't be here. Okay. Especially the leaders and the owners of those businesses. They wouldn't be here if they wanted to play that game.
No, I got to give kudos to my wife who plays that game brilliantly and has her whole career. Whereas I cannot. I don't have it in me. The patience.
Yep. This is a good point in this show for us to point out a couple of things for our good friend Tony, CarnesiConsulting.com. For more information about what he does, how he does, visit CarnesiConsulting.com. Good stuff out there. Another really great thing for him is, as we love everybody who has podcasts, as long as you're not cutting into your 21.6 time, he's got a great podcast out there on all wherever you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Apple, whatever is out there. DoBeAssociates.com. You can find that. And the name of the podcast is Do-Be-Time. When I was explaining this to somebody, they're like, Doobie Time? I'm like, no, not 420. It's
right.
It is actually Do-Be Time. So there you go.
Kent, thank you. I just want to have some fun there, because I'll tell people when times get tough in business, it's Doobie time.
That's right. More than you know, right?
Yeah.
But a great podcast.
More than you know.
Several episodes out there, just good stuff, which is great. But I think what a lot of and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, you guys are the professionals at this, and that's why it's kind of define your success, is I have accepted somebody else's definition of success from my company. And I think, I take a look and go, whoa, here's this company who does what I do, and this is how I think they're successful. So I'm kind of falling into their definition of success rather than saying, actually what would work with me and my company is something better or different.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I mean, I don't think you can go around defining yourself based on someone else's success.
But we do it all the time.
Oh, we do. I mean, but part of the reason we do that is A, it's easy, right? And B, we don't have to do the work ourselves then, which is pretty common out there as well. And Tony?
Well, I'm listening to that comment. I'm saying, well, number one, then you as a leader must look at what your definition of a success is before you get started, after you've gotten started, and as you keep going, because time and time again, I'll talk to people and they say, well, I don't want that. I don't need all that or something. And everybody has a different definition of success. Mm-hmm. And that starts with your personal vision. Mm. Going back to what you said, asking somebody, where do you see yourself 20 years from now? Okay. It's a tough question to answer, without a doubt. But as we get older and understand what we want, then that vision of personal vision needs to be fulfilled by your company. And for everybody, that's different. So that's where that starts. And you've got to stop. And yes, looking at the other person, when you see them doing really well, jealousy comes up, all types of feelings come up, but if you're clear on what you want, then you'll stop doing that. And that's one of the important things most business owners need to connect with is, why am I doing this? Why did I start a business in the first place? Just because I hated working for somebody? Well, that gets old pretty quick, okay? Because now you got to come up with another reason to be self-employed and building a business. Yeah. And what part of it do you love doing? You can't like all of it. You can't be a super technician. You can't be a super salesperson. You can't be a super manager.
Right.
What turns you on? What lights your fire? And now it's like, okay, I want to be doing this in the business. What else does that mean I have to do? So that success, Kent, really comes down to what you truly want. You got to get in touch with that. Does that make sense? Is that a good answer? How's that sound for an answer?
Yeah, but I in today's world, here in America, I can't speak outside of America, but that's not what we do. Give me, hey, take a look at your projections. Take a look at, what I mean. When we're creating that business plan, which a lot of small businesses don't create anyway, but when we're creating that business plan, it's, well, I'm successful when I have 4 trucks, and I'm not looking at all the debt that I'm in. I'm just,
Okay.
Yeah, they don't.
Good point.
You're right, but also small business owners and I'm sure even medium-sized business owners still have that feel that they have to control everything.
Yeah.
they have to be a part of everything. And I think what these owners need to understand is you can't. It is impossible to do everything that need be done, and you can't do it without the help of others.
Yeah.
There is absolutely nothing you can do without the help of others.
Well, that's why I have that up there on the screen right now. Part of Carnegie Consulting. Run your company. Don't let it run you.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's some good stuff there. Which that's why I bring it up. And how do you get entrepreneurs out and around that?
Yeah, everybody has their own definition of what they feel an entrepreneur is as well. It's one guy might be doing a franchise where it's business in a box, but he says, I'm an entrepreneur. Maybe an entrepreneur, not an entrepreneur. But so again, we can go definition of this and definition of that. But what we're trying here to do is trying to help people understand maybe more efficient ways of running your organization, which leads to greater success.
Efficiency is so important, especially when you brought up that part of my website, because if you're not efficient, then your business is going to run you. Okay. And it's about that efficiency starts at the top, and being able to bring in efficient practices. One of my endeavors over the last few years has been called the 4-day work week. That is really a metaphor for building a more flexible work environment where you're reducing the amount of time you're spending to get the same amount of production done. Efficiency. Okay. That's what consultants, that's what we're all about. Okay. When as a CFO, I want to see a more efficient business. We want to see a better bottom line, but how are we getting to a better bottom line? How are we doing that? So many business owners are very infatuated with that top line. I once was working with a $3 million business. I want a $9 million business. I said, so at 3 million, you're losing 300 grand a year. So at 9 million, you're going to lose 900 grand a year.
Yeah.
Let's work on all that stuff in between, that efficiency stuff. Why aren't your margins where they should be? And this is where we go and Kent, you just brought up the projections. Projections is an important tool to help you get that personal vision and your success. It's a very important tool, and monitoring it and you're checking on your progress is so important, because if you want it bad enough, and this is what I ask employers all the time who are now stuck in their business. We haven't grown in 2 years. I want this. I want that. How bad do you want it? Because now you got to change.
We get stuck in ruts. We get stuck in complacency. We get stuck at sometimes just in our own thoughts about, boy, I've been doing this for a while and I'm just tired of it.
Yep.
And I mean, most people who, especially on the Great American Walkout here a couple of years ago, like went out to start a business, had no idea how difficult it really is, how much time and effort it takes to build a business from concept to success. That's kind of why this show shifted to that format, so that we could help those, because people, you need help, because there's no way you're going to know how much it's really going to take, or how fast it can grow. And how do you manage that? How do you manage growth? Again, efficiency. The big boys, their idea of efficiency is we'll just get rid of 10,000 employees and our bottom line will look better.
Yep.
But you can't do that as a small business owner, even challenging as a medium-sized business owner. But so we have to try these different methods, right? Maybe we need to seek help. We need to get someone to show us a direction or path, someone like you, to help us see the light again, because sometimes we get those blinders on and they slowly close until we can't see where we're going anymore, because we're so narrowly focused. We get wrapped up in that.
Okay.
I've been there.
I think all of us as business owners have been there, me included. Okay. It's a matter of somebody coming in and asking the questions. the tough questions that you can't answer. Why are you doing it this way? Why are you doing it that way? And again, asking, that question of asking your employees, that was my first consulting client. I was blown away when he came back from the holidays. He said, I'm so glad you asked me to do that. Now I know we have to include the employees. Now, don't get me wrong. After my first employee meeting, there was a drawn picture of me on the wall of the factory, bald guy saying, we must be more proud. And it was so funny. This was the terrorist.
There were a bunch of dart holes in it?
Not yet, because we took it down in time. Okay. And, we dealt with that employee and said, hey, what do you have to talk to us? And we got him to open up, and he was sometimes constructive, sometimes destructive, but we got him to buy in. And the thing is, that perception of a consultant coming is tough. Like you just said, oh, you're going to come in and just fire people, right? That's what we're going to do. No. Why would I do that? What's the cost to rehire people? Yeah, we all know that the cost to rehire people is 1.5 times the salary when you look at the resources and everything that goes into it.
If you're efficient.
Okay. If you're efficient. So number one, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, if it's broken, let's fix it. Now, if we don't have the right tools to fix it, then we need new tools. But it's a step-by-step process.
Yeah.
And again, when you read about large companies doing these cuts, I've never, I've worked for Citibank for a while, but I was never in part of upper management. I sent reports to upper management, and but I don't understand some of the thinking of large organizations. But one thing that I took from working for Citibank, we gave a 1-page report to upper management. 1 page. Do you ever see a small, and you talked about projections? Oh, do we look at the projections? Do we look at the numbers? I've walked into companies where they, $3 million business, he shows me a stack of reports like this at the end of the month. It says, look at all the reports I get.
Yeah.
Did you really read those? He asked me the next month, did I read them? I said, no, I don't have time to read all this stuff.
Right.
We got to focus.
Absolutely.
And then it comes to focus. That's another big part of what I talk about. Focus. Each of your people has to be focused on what they're supposed to do, including you. And I'm sorry, I think I went off on a tangent there, but, just from that CFO perspective, because a lot of people, you said cutting costs. Oh, what do we need to do to fix the company? We need to cut costs. And that's an automatic response by an old-fashioned CFO. I'm here to cut costs. That's my job.
Oh, right. Right. Oh, they brought those 2 people in the room over there, and they're going to interview everybody. They're just going to can everybody.
Yeah. Okay. And you've had some great CFOs on your podcast talking about, no, it's about strategy. And the CFO has so much more of a role in a business than just cutting costs and watching numbers. It's about what do we need to do? What is the strategy? How are we implementing it? I call myself a C-suite CFO for a reason. I'm going to walk into the C-suite and say, these are the numbers. This is your department. This is your department. This is your department. This is your department. Why aren't the numbers up to speed? What are you doing about it? Okay. And why do I talk about people? Because time and time again, it goes back to people.
Yeah.
Time and time again, it goes back to people and how they're doing their job.
I recently was able to work with a company, and I reported directly to the CEO. And this was the first time outside of my own business that I was able to report to a CEO directly. And it was fun because I constantly said to my wife every week was like, oh, very interesting is hear what I'm saying. Don't watch what I'm doing. And I mean, the company that I'm talking about, and
I do.
Their business model was, we like to flip financial institutions, right? We buy them cheap, clean them up, inject capital, sell it, buy it for a penny, sell it for 2, right?
Yeah.
And even though during a lot of the interactions with the worker bees, as I would call them, it was, hey, we love you. Hey, we love you. Hey, we love you. And then, behind the, you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Well, that's because you got done talking to him and you turned around to go sit down at your desk and you look back and he's all of a sudden pulling his earplugs out. Oh, I didn't hear a word that guy said.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. right? And so I think that's an interesting thing, that a lot of us who have dreams, who don't who are risk adverse, don't want to take the risk to start a business, or are better entrepreneurs, don't quite understand the big overall picture.
Well, this is something I had with my manager at the big bank.
Yeah.
Tony, you'll like this, because I said, you need to tell us why we're doing what we're doing. I mean, because if you know why you're doing it, that can provide motivation, right?
Yeah.
You're buying into it. And what I was told was you don't need to know why. You just need to do what you're told to do.
Yeah.
And I'm going, okay, strike two on the corporate mentality in my head.
And you said, "Are we married?" Yeah.
I was more of the disruptor, but I was the hard worker. I learned I showed up early. I stayed late. I did more work than anybody on my team.
Yeah.
And I got nothing out of it.
Yeah.
Other than asked to do more.
Yep.
And asked to do more, which is, what happens in the corporate world is we're going to give you a title.
Yeah.
And I finally looked at the folks and I just said, okay, well, how much of a pay increase comes with that title? I'm like, what? They literally did not plan for that question to come back at them.
Yeah.
I said, so I'll tell you what, it's Friday. You're asking me to take on this new role. And in this new role, you tell me I have to do 20% more work than I'm doing now. I'm already giving you 110%. I'm already top 5% in the country getting work done. And you want 20% more. How much are you willing to pay me? Is it going to be worth my while to break my back even more? And I said, why don't you come? I'll come back on Monday, and based on your response, I'll be able to give you a response. And I did come back on Monday, and they said, well, we'll give you a 5% raise. So I got this new title. I got a 5% raise because I asked. Wouldn't have gotten it otherwise. And then they started handing this title out to everybody when they figured out the work I was doing, it can be done. And everybody would come by, hey, I've got that same title. I'm level 3 now, like you. And I said, congratulations. And how do you like that pay raise? They go, what? I said, didn't you get that 5% pay raise? Management came running right back to me going, what are you doing? You don't need to tell anybody about that.
Yeah.
You stick to your world and we'll stick to ours. And I'm like, a toxic environment.
Yeah.
Is how I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I was kind of a toxic employee, but because I spoke up. That's another thing you don't do in the corporate world. Don't speak up. Don't say what's on your mind.
That's where I've fallen into trouble.
Yeah.
So and that's why I love the 4-day work week, right? Is it starts to stretch people out a little bit to say, hey, as a salesperson, it took me a long time to be okay with taking my kid to the doctor in the middle of the day instead of having to be at a desk or whatever for 8 hours. I never had a problem helping out or chasing the sale after hours, right? Hey, it's just part of my job.
Sales is 24/7.
Right. Hey, when that phone rings, right? I never had a problem with that. But if I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to go golfing with this client or with a friend, or I just need to take the next 2 hours and sit by a lake just to recoup whatever. I felt horrible about it. And it took me so long to talk myself into saying, no, it's okay.
Well, you didn't come home and your wife didn't ask you, hey, did you get that sale done? No. She's, how'd you play?
Yeah.
And that was really what you were concerned about, was how well you played.
Right.
Not whether or not you made that sale. But that's, again, we could do a whole other show on
but
sales and relationships.
That's why I love the 4-day work week, is that's saying, listen, break out of the mold. Why do you need to work?
Well, this is what I like about what Tony's thoughts here, in saying, go back and work with your employees, keep them involved in what's going on, allow them to be part of a decision-making process. It makes you feel, as an employee, it would make me feel like, I'm really part of something here.
So back in the 1900s, it was back in the 1990s, I was a district manager for combined insurance, right? And we were in field insurance slingers. And I always told my team, I'm like, listen, you're 100% commission. Every Monday, I want you to tell me how much money you need to make this week. And if you can make that in a day, you're done. Now, we might have a discussion where I say, hey, wouldn't it be neat if you made it that much tomorrow? Right. I mean, so they, even back in the 90s, I was telling people, you don't have to chase this for 40 hours a week if you're commissioned. Tell me how much you want to make. I'm going to find a way to help you make that this week. And if it takes you 5 days, it's going to take you 5 days. If it takes you 3 hours, hey, you're done in 3 hours. And they would just sometimes just blankly look at me and go, are you serious?
Well, they might also remind you that, by the way, there's a quota. I have to make this amount of money per week or month or whatever for X amount of months, or I'm out of a job anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a two-way street there. Sales is a tough world.
Well, Kent, I love the fact that you bring that up, because whoever said that the amount of hours you put in is a sign of your productivity?
Yeah.
Another question somebody once on our podcast said, just because they're sitting at their desk, how do you know they're working?
Oh, geez, right.
And Kent, you went right to it. These are the results, and then Bill, you went into it. Okay, these are the results the individual needs. Now let's assume that those results are the quota that you just mentioned. Okay. All right, what are you expected to produce? Great. If you can do it in 4 days instead of 5 days, why do I have a problem with that? Now, how do we get more out of it? How do we do it better? How can we now get some momentum behind that and do more with that efficiency? But again, why is it the number of hours you put in so important versus the results? Managing results.
You said something there, though. You said, if you can do it in 4 days, basically, God bless you. That's great.
Yeah.
But then how can we get more out of you? That is a corporate mentality always. How can I get more? I want more. I need to get more and more and more. It's like, when is it enough?
Well, now take the side of the leader, we're trying to grow this business. Our existing productivity is good for today, but not for tomorrow. Yeah. So now we want to grow in productivity. How can we do it more efficiently and do it? And now you go back to that. And then when you get to that fifth day,
I like that part.
Okay, the 4-day work week. Now you as an organization, do I give that as a gift to my employee to take the day off? Or do I ask them to do more? Then you ask the employee, what would you like to do with it? Because now I'm going to give you an opportunity to make even more money if you could help us build a new strategy, a new part of the business. Because now that frees up that employee's time, that person's time to do more for the business. Or, this Friday I want to take off because I want to attend a family event. Great. As a person working for that company, are you going to be in a rush to leave if you've got that kind of flexibility?
Right.
And now the company has somebody more engaged, somebody who might want to do more. And they're doing it because they want to, not because they have to.
Yeah. Well, they're doing it because there's free yogurt and granola now.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, employees have many things that they expect that are, should be a given and it's not an additional benefit being provided as incentive. Simple.
And I love what Tony's saying. I mean, every employee wants to be heard. And that's, hey, now what do you want? Do you want Mondays off because you're going to work 4 days? You want Wednesday? I mean, I remember when the banks were closed on Wednesdays, right? Now,
when was that? You're not that old.
Oh,
I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah, back in the 70s, 80s, yeah, closed on Wednesdays. Yeah, right.
I didn't do much.
They were in Iowa anyway. Yeah. And
there's no money in Iowa, so they can close most of the week. So
farmers were probably in the field that day. I don't know. Yeah. But all they want to do is be heard, and and that's where Google, when they're like, hey, we're going to have free green tea and Cheerios and bean bags, because all of a sudden their employees were heard, and everybody goes, I need to go work for Google. They've got it figured out.
I can play ping pong during my work hours.
I mean,
right.
And now people go, oh, well, I mean, it's cool that I played ping pong 4 days this week, but I don't feel real productive.
Yeah.
And I worked 6 days, and I was in the office 6 days because I played ping pong for 2.
Right.
I was in the office.
Right.
I think
it's kind of that double-edged sword, right, Tony?
Well, that model was popular maybe 10 years ago. I remember going into a big accounting firm and going, wow, there's a pool table, there's all these snacks and everything.
Yeah.
But now with the 4-day work week and people are like, why do I want to spend time in the office playing pool?
Right.
I want to get my work done and go home and be with my family. I want to do the things that I want to do. And, the office.
Now you're talking work-life balance.
Well, but there's a big financial institution, Bill, that had some of the best years during the pandemic for productivity as they went as they went remote, right? Or hybrid, as we say. And then all of a sudden, somebody in the top C-suite says everyone's coming back to work.
You get your butt back to work is more like.
And production has dropped substantially.
Isn't that something?
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's not as efficient because they were told we're in a people business. You got to be around people. Now, there's a good argument for that. Right?
Yes,
we do need to be around people because we can't do everything ourselves. And the more people we meet and the more people we surround ourselves with, the brighter our world gets, the more opportunities are out there.
Yep.
So that's an important factor. Is that relate to meeting at the water cooler and having that conversation? It to some extent it is. Because you pass ideas along to each other. This was how employees were able to speak to each other at equal levels, historically. Whereas I like the idea of being able to go level to level and having conversations, with people way higher than me or way lower than me, because you got to get an idea of what's going on. What's the culture of this business? Because if the culture is not good, I don't care how efficient you are.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough to survive.
I agree.
And we fall into this trap. Look at Uber. So Uber was, during the pandemic, they got rid of 50% of their employees in a day.
In a day. Wow.
That was the whole rideshare side. Gone. The only thing that kept was the delivery side.
Huh.
That's brutal. That's piss poor planning, first of all.
Well,
but I mean, who predicts a pandemic? But actually, many companies had plans in place. But and some adapted and some didn't. But Tony, we only have a couple. How much do we have? 3 minutes left? 2 minutes?
About 2.
Wow.
Tony, words of wisdom. What can we do?
What can you do is, you know what? This is one of my favorite things to say this year. Shut up and listen. How's that one? Okay. Shut up and listen. Ask a question. And real quick, somebody mentioned to me they were working for a big bank, and they said, "Oh, they're always talking about work-life balance and all this stuff." I said, "Really? What have they done?" Absolutely nothing.
Yep.
Okay. And so many business owners say, "Okay, I'll ask a question," then they won't listen. You want to grow your business? Ask your people what you need to do. Shut up and listen. Take notes, and then remember, it's a two-way street.
I love that.
Something, they need something. An acronym that I think I heard one of the CFO pros said on your station not too long ago: WIFM, WIIFM. What's in it for me?
That's it.
Communication in every business. Communication is key to your business. Okay, what goes to the top? Communication. And again, 2 ears, 1 mouth. We can go on and on.
But I like the fact you're right. Communication, but the really important one that we don't do very well is listen.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you want to listen to Do Be Time podcast out there on all your main
Yeah.
podcasting stations, because, well, we probably need a little Do Be Time.
That's
All righty.
D-O, the letter B. Right.
BEDO-BE-time. Yeah. Do Be Time. That's why I tried to hesitate.
Yeah.
And that podcast is going to be reborn in January, the 4-day work week.
There we go.
There we go.
Love it.
Perfect.
Love it.
Alrighty.
Hey,
Tony-
listen, Tony, thanks for
Yeah.
dropping in and spending some
Thank
of your
you, guys.
busy day with us. Blessed to have you. Of course, stick around because right on our heels is the Success Journey podcast show, followed up this afternoon by In the Know with Steph and Joe. Thanks for hanging out with Innovative Strategies and Bill Hasse.
Tony, thank you
Bill.
so
Thank
much.
you, Ken. Thank you. You're welcome.